Okay, hello everybody and welcome to the Nagaland Roundtable. This is brought to you by Boom Live. That's boomlive.in. We're fact checkers, we address misinformation, and we're based in Mumbai, Delhi, and we work out of India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. And if you think about this region, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, we realized exactly looking at this map some time ago that we don't really know one region very well, which is not very nice, obviously, which is very much a part of India, that is the northeast of India. And so this endeavor, we launched the Northeast Facts Network in December last year. And as part of that, we are doing the Nagaland Roundtable. My name is HR Venkatesh, and I'm the Director Training and Research here at Boom Live. And I'm joined by two people who've put this event together. One person who leads the Northeast Facts Network, the project lead, Dr. Sabina Yasmin Rahman. I'm also joined by our research assistant, Shulu Duo, who put this together. We also have, they've been in touch with you all, but I'm also joined by our fact checker and our producer, Divya Chandra, and our producer, Tita Ghosh, right here with you. Here's how the next 1.5 hours is going to unfold. Each speaker, I will call upon you to speak for about 3 to 4 minutes in the first round about your work and how that intersects really with Nagaland's issues. And in the second round, we'll probably talk about what we outside Nagaland often get wrong about Nagaland. And we'll also have a third round of Q&A. And today, of course, we have 8 esteemed guests. I'm very excited and honored to be part of this panel and speaking to them. It's very exciting to be able to get the breadth of their views on Nagaland. And very quickly, let me name them. I'll do detailed introductions as I call upon them. We have Bano Haralu, a broadcast journalist who will probably speak about, among other things, the Amur falcon and community role in wildlife conservation. We have G. Kanato Chofi, who will probably speak about Christianity and its ethnicization. He's an assistant professor. We have Dr. Atoshi representing the Nagaland Gandhi Ashram and also indigenous entrepreneurship. We have Vishu Rita Krocha, who represents the press and independent publishers. We have Lipokmar Zudir, who will speak on the role of music in Naga society. And we have T. Longkoi Kyan Nyungwan, who's probably going to speak about gender and customary law and its practices. We have David Hanning on Kuki participation in the Naga movement, and Tejal Hauko Khasavi, whose expertise is urbanity and tribality in contemporary Nagaland. Thank you so much for joining us. Very excited to hear you all. We'll start off with Bano Haralu. Bano is a pioneering broadcast journalist and wildlife conservationist of Northeast India. She cut her teeth in journalism with Doordarshan. She's also worked with NDTV a lot. So NDTV in Guwahati in Assam, as well as in Kolkata. Then in 2010, she returned to her home state to begin working on conservation and formed the Nagaland Wildlife and Biodiversity Conservation Trust in 2013. She's currently engaged with the Wildlife Conservation Society, India, as its project lead for community-led livelihood and conservation program in Nagaland. It's over to you, Bano.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity and having me included in this forum. It's my privilege and my pleasure to share some insights into how I transcended from journalism to conservation, which is a question I'm often asked. But I think, in a way, conservation and environmental concerns have always been at the forefront for me, having reported for decades from the Northeast. While Nagaland, like the rest of the Northeast states, have always had its political issues on the forefront and the stereotyping of its political turmoils and challenges. Yet, behind it all, the most important of all, the environmental issues have never really been highlighted except for the floods in Assam. In most newspaper coverages or media coverages. Having said that, it has been my privilege to have worked, yes, very closely with the Amur falcon conservation way back in 2012, 2013, with a group of friends, and also very closely with the community in Pangti in Wokha. And it really is perhaps the first time that a community never really understanding what was going to be in return as much for them, as what we discovered was that there never really had been any engagement with communities on conservation and environmental awareness at that level, and and such close contact with conservationists and societies coming together to work towards just this whole issue of concentrating and focusing on the need for conservation as as a security for the future. So really, the Amur falcon conservation story, it'll take me a whole another hour perhaps to engage with that. But I would like to, tie up with the work that I've been doing with communities, and currently the work that I'm engaged with the Wildlife Conservation Society, leading a study and a community's livelihood conservation engagement with communities in the fringe villages of the Ntanki National Park, which is the only national park in Nagaland, and which faces tremendous challenges of extraction of natural resources. It has been doing so for many, many decades, and
Right.
continues to face these issues. So we are working closely and engaged with approximately, not a very large number of people, but about 5,000 people in about six, as a pilot project of 6 of the 24 odd villages in the fringes of this national park currently.
Got it. Thank you so much. And these little introductions we're asking you to make are like little tributaries that, one can follow and find out more about your work. And of course, we'll carry on the conversation after the introductions as well. I call upon next G. Kanato Chofi, an assistant professor of social anthropology at Dibrugarh University in Assam. He received his PhD in social anthropology from the Department of Anthropology in the University of Delhi and completed a postdoctoral fellowship at the Center of Excellence, Center of Northeast Indian Studies at Utkal University, Bhubaneswar. His research interests include tribes and indigenous peoples, political anthropology, comparative religion, and the ethnohistory of Northeast India. His writings focus on contextualizing ethnography within broader historical and regional interconnectedness in South and Southeast Asia. His most recent work is Christianity and Politics in Tribal India, Baptist Missionaries and Naga Nationalism, published in 2021. It's over to you, Kanato.
Yeah, thank you for the kind introduction. I want to thank the Notice Facts Network for inviting me to be part of this important deliberation. Greetings to my other fellow panelists. So nice to have each one of you here. Very briefly about my work. For some years, I've been working on the impact of Protestant mission in the Indo-Myanmar frontier. So my work covers the entire 1,600 kilometers, the boundary between India and Myanmar. So what I've been doing so far is trying to understand the impact of the Baptist mission as well as the other Protestant mission in shaping the politics, ethnic nationalism. Also, something what we call as the Christian culture of the diverse ethnic groups residing in this region. So the kind of writings that I've been doing, or the researches that I've been doing, has been focused mostly on the Nagas, the Kukichins, and the Kachins. But the fact that this Nagas seems to be a very important part of this broad geopolitical space that I'm studying. So one reason that I've been focusing on the Nagas is because of how the whole Protestant mission, especially the Baptist mission, has shaped our identity, how it has shaped our understanding of nation states, or so much so that it has even shaped our understanding of our relation with the rest of India and other parts of the world. So that is something that I've been working on, trying to come to a more understanding, which is quite very complex, but trying to understand about how this the Baptist faith or the Baptist mission, or for that matter, the Protestant denomination at large, has played a very important role in shaping Naga history, our identity and culture. Yeah, so I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kanato. And we'll come back to you a little later, of course. Let's bring in Dr. Atoshi, a prominent entrepreneur, educationist, and community care worker based in Dimapur in Nagaland. He holds a postgraduate diploma from the Institute of Rural Management Anand, Irma in Gujarat, and a bachelor's university in veterinary sciences and animal husbandry. This is from Rajendra Agricultural University, the Bihar Veterinary College, Patna. He is the managing trustee of the Nagaland Gandhi Ashram. He played an instrumental role in establishing Dimul as a highly successful and profit-making dairy enterprise in Dimapur, modeled after the Amul cooperative. Dr. Atoshi is currently the pro-vice chairman of DPS Dimapur and the chairman of the Ekhahoba D. Growers Cooperative Society Limited. He has also served as a senior member of several apex-level government and non-governmental bodies, such as the Nagaland State Cooperative Marketing and Consumers Federation Limited and the Confederation of Indian Industries. It's over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Venkatesh, for the very generous introduction. And I must also congratulate you and your team for bringing together such a balanced panel. All these panelists are very serious workers and very actively engaged in the fields that their chosen fields. So I myself feel very privileged to be in their midst. I am here representing Nagaland Gandhi Ashram. So let me tell something about Nagaland Gandhi Ashram. This is a grassroots level voluntary organization established in 1955 by my father, late Natwar Thakkar. He passed away, unfortunately, in 2018. And also very ably supported by my mother, Lentina Thakkar, who is also a trained Gandhian. She is just about to enter into her 98th year of age. So this ashram was essentially started in the year 1955 with the sole objective of, bringing together, for the purpose of emotional and national integration through voluntary work and by, through the Gandhian teachings. So over the years, it has been engaged in a lot of activities, most notably vocational training for PWD, starting schools, running of schools for the school dropouts. And also in those days, there was a ban on attending schools for the children. So ashram started hostel facilities and also facilitated their education. We have also implemented a lot of, cottage industries in the vicinity of Chuchuimlang, the headquarters, which is based in Mokokchung district. We did pioneering work in modern beekeeping. The modern beekeeping in Nagaland was introduced by Nagaland Gandhi Ashram way back in the early 60s. Also, we have been doing activities on education, healthcare, but also most important activity that it has implemented was introduction of non-traditional crops with the idea, objective of maintaining the soil fertility and preventing. Fortunately, we were successful in preventing the green revolution affecting this very fragile locale of Nagaland.
Right.
Of late, we have also started a voluntary MSW courses introduced in partnership with IGNOU and later on with TIS, but it has to be put on hold because of various technical reasons. So up to this extent, I think this is about Nagaland Gandhi Ashram, and my association with it has been since my childhood, I have been associated with that. Apart from that, my association with other activities, Mr. Venkatesh has spoken about it. So in the later stage, we can talk more in detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's good to know a little more in detail about your work. Let's bring in Vishu Rita Krocha, a poet, journalist, and author from Nagaland. She's authored 3 collections of poetry: A Bucket of Rain, 2011, Yearnings, 2019, and From the Broken Earth, 2021. Also, Tales from the Enchanted Village, 2024. Her short stories were published in the Zuban anthologies, The Many That I Am, and Homeward, and prose writings from the Northeast, published by Sahitya Academy. Her latest work, titled Death Rituals, an insight into the Naga ancestral religion, appeared in the Routledge publication Death and Dying in Northeast India, Indigeneity and Afterlife. That was in 2023. She's also a recipient of the Kohima Press Club Impact Journalism Award 2022 and a National Foundation of India NFI Media Fellow 2021. She founded Pen Thrill in the year 2013, which has been instrumental in unearthing many literary talents from Nagaland. It's over to you, Vishu.
Thank you so much, Venkitesh, for the very kind introduction. It's an honor for me to be part of this very esteemed and distinguished panel, and I want to thank Boom Live for this important and wonderful initiative that you're undertaking. Well, I am a journalist by profession, and journalism is a field that I am passionate about, and I have been practicing that for the last 15, 16 years. And but also at the same time, I love stories and writing in general. So I ventured into publishing in the year 2013, primarily because there was little or no platform for aspiring writers like myself. And so when I ventured into publishing, I did with nothing in my pocket but dreams. Literally, I had no knowledge about business or how a publishing house works, but it was just my love for stories that led me to publishing. And 10 years since, we've been able to publish 96 books. And also, I think I'm proud to say, I think we have at least published about 100 authors. And so primarily being able to publish their works because has given me a lot of gratification, because through this platform, I'm also able to amplify the voices of people from Nagaland. And where, having come from the oral tradition of literature, like publishing is also a relatively new concept in the state of Nagaland. But now with platforms that I am providing, and also a few others who have also ventured into publishing, I think we've together being able to publish a lot of works from Nagaland. That's primarily what I do.
Thank you so much, Vishu, and good to learn about your work, and those interested can follow her work as well. Let's bring in Lipokmar Zudir, an internationally acclaimed composer, conductor, music educator, and ethnomusicologist. He completed his B. Muse from the Asian Institute for Liturgy and Music Philippines and postgraduate studies at Sheffield University, UK. He has served as director of the Northeast Zone Cultural Centre under the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, and is currently the chairman of the Nagaland Conservatory of Music, which he founded in the year 2012. He's a recipient of Sangeet Natak Academy's Ustad Bismillah Khan Yuva Puraskar 2006, Government of India, and the Governor's Award 2011 for distinction and contribution in the field of music by the Government of Nagaland. Over to you, Lipokmar.
Thank you very much. And it gives me immense pleasure to be part of this discussion. And I want to really appreciate what you're doing with NEFN. This has been what we have been trying to advocate when we were serving in the government on the inaccurate stereotyping of the Northeastern region and the practices. And to see a similar practice that's been upheld is something very encouraging. I'm primarily a student of music, and as a performer, has been very active in the earlier years, but it eventually realized that music plays a very crucial, very important role in a child's development. And in other parts of the country, music is introduced at a very early age, primarily because of the fact that it helps nurture the brains to to be more receptive to creativities and organizing ideas and so forth. But unfortunately, in this part of the world, such realization is missing. So our main advocate at the moment is to train music teachers who will be willing one day to go to schools and colleges and to churches and render music leadership so that children of various ages and even grown-ups would have the opportunity and access to get music education. That's our primary role, considering the importance that music plays in the Naga society, which we will discuss in the later part of the discussion. But primarily as an introductory note, that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, and I remember that I had a guitar case when I was a kid. It said music is basic. There was a sticker on it. It was given by some cousin to me, so it was not something I bought. And the sticker said music is basic. Keep music in our schools, which is not something we have really succeeded in doing. Thanks for that. Right, so we're roughly halfway through our introductions. We have 4 more speakers to go to. I think we're making good time. So let's bring in our next. I think we have 3 more speakers actually. So let's bring in the next 3 and then maybe proceed to the next phase of the program today. So let's bring in T. Longkoi Kiam Nguyen. I'm so sorry I butchered your name, but I will get it right, I promise. And you're free to butcher my name in response. So they're an assistant professor of sociology at the Central University of Haryana. She completed her MPhil and PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Her research interests include social inequality, development disparity, class emergence in tribal society, gender disparities in Nagaland's political representation, women's rights and customary laws, social stratification, recognition, and redistribution. She's also worked with the Indian Council of Social Sciences Research, ICSSR, on major projects. It's over to you, Longkoi.
Hi, good afternoon to one and all. Thank you, Boom and NEFN for considering me to be a part of this series. The theme which I would like to share with all of you is based on the project that was awarded by ICSSR on this reservation for women and customary law and Article 371A, a woman's struggle for power sharing. I will be sharing something that is from my ongoing research that is on gender, customary law, and its practices. The insights that I'm going to share is taken from the article focusing on a Khamyungan tribe. The paper which got published last October, which was published by Sage. The data used in this article is collected from the field that was conducted between February and March 2021 among the Khamyungan tribe in the Noklak district of Nagaland. My presentation itself is going to address what actually mainland gets wrong about Nagaland or Naga society. In fact, it is not only the mainland, but also the colonial administrators and anthropologists, who studied about the Naga society when it comes to gender aspect. I would like to begin with the idea of egalitarian or democratic society. How Naga society is perceived as egalitarian society for the mainland people. Egalitarian in simple terms, believing that all people are equally important and should have the same rights and opportunities. For that, I would like to bring in customary law and its practices. Accounts made by colonial administrators and anthropologists like Hemmendorf, where he portrays that Naga society were treating the women as equal to men. And he states that many women in more civilized society, the parts of India, may well envy to women of the Naga hills, their high status and their free and happy life. So such assumptions further intensifies and continues even in the post-colonial writings like Verer Elwin and Naga scholars too. Elwin mentions that women hold a high and honorable position. There is far greater sense of equality and partnership between the couple. Here, why I decided to, focus especially in this series, focusing on my article only, is because in order to, highlight some of the thing where, because of customary law, which hampers the movement or the mobility of a woman in today's context. While customary law is essential for social cohesion and integrity, and indeed, like any other culture, Naga society, we are proud of upholding societal norms and practices, but also it cannot ignore the question of its discriminatory nature. The Kamyungan Tribal Council Executive, which was held in 1997 on customary law, which highlighted that, Kamyungan society practices society is patriarchy, which is reflected by notions such as the born or the birth of male child being auspicious, the man as the breadwinner, and the protector of the society, whereas women being subordinate to their husbands. And if you look at the inheritance rights, the same goes, where only the male members can inherit the rights. And if you look at other decision making, you will see women are, zero representation or nowhere, even in this context. Why I try to focus on this article is that if you look at present status, like urban local bodies, there was a brutal agitation, where the tribal male members, they do not want, women to participate in the decision-making body. And we have this very long tradition of sovereignty demand. We have almost like masculine nationalism, where women's participation is nowhere acknowledged. And another concern is also, until March 2023, no women were elected in the Nagaland Legislative Assembly. So going by all these challenges and concerns, if you look at the colonial accounts, or after post-colonial also, so many scholars have looked at, and they kind of glorify and celebrate, how Naga society is egalitarian. In fact, there are so many scholars that they have mentioned that, it's a thoroughly democratic communities, where Naga society is exceedingly democratic, where Naga society is purest a democracy, egalitarian functioning, where Naga society is extremely democracy, where a village democracy is very much secular. So these are some of the things which tend to make mistake or tend to get a wrong notion about Naga society, where women are not acknowledged and women are not being honored, when you talk about democracy, when you talk about equality and society. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, we'll follow up on your points, but that was good to know. Let's bring in the last of our last two speakers. Dr. David Haneng is an assistant professor at Gushkara College, Burdwan University. His PhD thesis was on history of the Kukis of Naga Hills during the colonial period, 1832 to 1947. A former professor at Tetso College, Dimapur, he is now engaged as an independent researcher on issues that affect the Northeast. David, it's over to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for this opportunity. Well, so my research or my expertise has been mostly on the Kukis of Naga Hills. So like when Indians talk about Naga Hills and they hardly know about Naga Hills or Nagaland, so there's also this mini histories of Nagaland where communities like Kukis would be what to say in the margins, or it would not be known much. So in a day when, especially because of some issues that happened in the 90s, the entire narrative or the histories that has been portrayed is as if like Kukis and Nagas have always been at war or fighting. But then when we look at history, things were not like that. In fact, when we see the history of the Kukis of Naga Hills, in fact, the construction of an imagined community, when the Nagas constructed an imagined community cookies were very much part of that because especially the Angamis and the Zeliangs and the cookies, they have been living together very closely. And say like the cookies have had peace treaty with the people of Honoma, especially the Semomak clan, and then the Zeliangs also, villages like Mitsangbong, which is now called Ensan. So then later on came the church. Angamis reaching out to the cookies with the gospel, and then cookies and Angamis again to the Zeliang. So the Nagas always considered the cookies as part of their imagined community. So that was how easily cookies also could blend in and contribute, or they never thought of themselves as other, but the only other here was the British. So that's how the cookies contributed and was part of as a common people group. So we see how the cookies of Naga Hills, the Simon Commission, and then, in fact, the Akbar. Very few people would know that Lengzang Kuki was the head Dubasi in Kohima from 1930 to 1944, the longest-serving head Dubasi. So it was in those very crucial years of Naga history that a Kuki was actually the head Dubasi in Kohima. And so Sir Akbar Haidari's talks and all, cookies were very much there. And then cookies were part of the NNC under the Kohima Central Council. Sehuan Kuki was part of the Naga delegation to meet Jawaharlal Nehru. And later on, when NPC came, cookies were part of the Naga People's Convention's drafting committee and all that. So I just wanted to highlight how when we talk of history basing on the present context, it doesn't completely show the picture. When we look back and see the alternative histories, sometimes histories are not black and white. It's far more than that. And then the cookies of Nagaland, very little known, perhaps even among the panelists here or the participants here, were very much part of the land, the people, the history, and our contribution is second to none. That's what I wanted to share. Thanks.
Thank you so much, David. Let's bring in our last but not least speaker, Tejal Hauko Kasavi, a PhD candidate at the Center for Historical Studies, JNU. He hails from Mezoma, a western Angami village in the Kohima district. He recently submitted his PhD thesis on the urban history of Dimapur city in Nagaland. And he completed his bachelor's and master's from St. Stephen's College and Hindu College, respectively, in New Delhi, as well as his MPhil at the University of Delhi. Previously, he's also worked as a researcher in the Institute of Chinese Studies, Delhi. His areas of research interest are borderland histories, colonial legal systems, Naga customary law, historical anthropology, and urban history of Nagaland. It's over to you, Tejal Hauko.
Thank you for giving me the time, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is an immense honor to share this platform with the distinguished panelists whom we have already had the privilege of listening to. And my sincere thanks to the organizers of this event for giving me this opportunity. I'll share very briefly from my PhD thesis, which is a study of the urban space of Dimapur, as already mentioned. It is my contention that to understand the contemporary social, political, and economic landscape of Nagaland, we must discard the notion that the categories of tribe and urban are mutually exclusive. In popular perceptions, Nagaland is the land of tribes, and the category of tribe is not conventionally associated with urbanity. If anything, tribe is very often understood as antithetical to modernity and thereby urbanity. But we need to revisit this assumption. And to take Dimapur city, for instance, my thesis argues that the urbanization of Dimapur occurred alongside the tribalization of Dimapur, by which I mean that as Dimapur became more urban, it also became more tribal. And while little acknowledged, urban spaces are already reframing the understanding of tribality in Nagaland. Dr. Langkoy has already mentioned the opposition to the participation of women in urban local bodies. I just want to restate that it is in a very urban context that customary law has been challenged and debated, and thereby opening avenues for contesting tribality. Also in Nagaland, the most pressing questions around tribalism are emerging from a very urban context. For instance, the ongoing debates and discussions around the implementation of the inner line permit, or to take the Register of Indigenous Inhabitants of Nagaland exercise. The issues of indigeneity and belonging in Nagaland can no longer be separated from the urban context in which these questions are emerging. But unfortunately, urban spaces are visible in public discourse only as spaces of danger and threat, and become invisible in resultant policy formulations. Thus, to state it simply, the enforcement of ILP or RIN will have the most drastic consequences on urban spaces, but considerations of the urban reality are so far absent in policy deliberations. And therefore, my study argues that the concepts of urban and tribe are continuously evolving. And I argue that at least in Nagaland, they are evolving through a dialogical relationship. The tribal is shaping the form of urban spaces, just as urban spaces are also giving rise to new expressions of the tribal. Perhaps I think I'll conclude by re-emphasizing that while urban spaces in Nagaland are often seen through the prism of tribality, there is also an imperative need to direct a reciprocal lens on tribality through the prism of urban space. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tejal Hawker. So we're doing very well on time, actually. We've had, 40 minutes, of which 4 minutes was actually the introduction. So it's excellent. We've covered, a range from wildlife conservation to ethnicization of Christianity and the Nagaland Gandhi Ashram, indigenous entrepreneurship, the press, independent publishing, role of music in Naga society, gender and customary law, tribal affairs, Kuki participation in the Naga movement, and so on. So it's quite a wide panel. And the thing I'd want to start off, and this is the second part, is, and I will call upon you again, maybe not in the same order, but and if you can preface your comments with a little bit shorter. The idea is to kind of answer the question, what do we get wrong about Nagaland? And when I say what do we, I mean people from other parts of India, maybe people from other states within the Northeast, maybe people from outside India itself who don't understand. What do we get wrong about Nagaland? Let's start actually with Bano and then go to Kanato, and then I'll call upon other people.
Oops, yeah. Okay. What do people get wrong about Nagaland? Yes, so I can be both an insider and an outsider because I worked for most of my years' time in journalism outside of Nagaland in broadcast journalism. So I can speak about that lens where the perception has mostly been stereotyped of the area being insurgent-ridden, and there seems to be no other life beyond insurgency, and there could be no other qualitative life in that area. So these are some of the perceptions that, at least during my years of reporting, that was the perception, and that was what had to be. It was a stereotyped vision of the state. And I think the other perception, I think, is also that there is a great equality amongst men and women. And that perception is fed largely, I believe, from the fact that parents work hard and they allow their children to be going for further education, and they can be seen in cities and in universities and in colleges. So that perception that men, boys and girls have the same equality, but the question of equity does not really arise at the societal level. That is never generally questioned. The other factor, I think, that mainlanders, let us say, perceive about Nagaland is that, at one hand, it is this state which is emerging out of, first of all, they would know very little about its political history and its origins, and the way the state of Nagaland was formed, that there was a battle that was not ours, that was formed, Second World War battle was fought right there in Kohima, and it was decided the fate of a Second World War was fought. The history of the place is not very well known. And then, of course, the political struggles. Why has there been a political struggle in Nagaland? That is also not known. It's very sketchy about the political history of Nagaland with mainlanders. And I think there is a tendency, like I said, to stereotype the entire region into one box, one color, as mountain states, as tribals. And so, yeah.
That's quite a list, actually. Kanato?
Yeah, so for someone having studied Naga Christianity for a very long time, I would like to say this, like with regards to Christianity or culture change, conversion or culture loss. I think one thing that people, if we have this category of something called margin in mainland, one thing that people in the mainland get wrong is always denying the native's voice, whenever it comes to conversion. The agency part is always missing. Because I would like to say, and then, having been studying Christianity in Nagaland for a very long time, it's very complex, very, very nuanced. So you cannot have some kind of a very monolithic understanding of Naga Christianity or a very monolithic understanding of how the whole missionary processes shaped the Naga history and Naga society at large. The other thing I might offend many people, but I'll be very, very outright here, is that we have this notion of, especially among writers, intellectuals, even common people in mainland, that think that it takes a white missionary to come and teach us nationalism. That they think that Naga nationalism is something that the white men came and taught us to create problems for the Indian state or to make us anti-national. Let me be very honest here. That is a casteist attitude. I think that is an insult to Naga intelligence to say that someone has to come, a white man has to come and teach Nagas about independence, about sovereignty, or the whole idea of Naga nationalism. You might agree with me, very contentious, I might agree with Naga nationalism or not, or the whole question of Naga identity or the whole Naga freedom struggle. But to say that that somebody has come and then taught us about nationalism, I think this is something people in the mainland, and especially this whole swath of writers and journalists and big-time intellectuals in India think that American missionaries came and taught us Naga nationalism. This is something I would like to debunk, and I would encourage, or I would like to challenge people in the mainland to have a rethink once. Yeah, so thank you. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you so much. We also would like to challenge these misconceptions, and it just occurred to me that it's not just Nagaland, but also the whole of India when it comes to politics and quote unquote sensitive issues, we reduce everything to a binary. I mean, it is so sad. Let's bring in Vishu and then Dr. Atoshi. What do we get wrong about Nagaland? Vishu and then Dr. Atoshi.
Yeah, so apart from being called names while living in the city as a student, even as recent as last year, I had this Sikkimese colleague who's not a journalist, but we worked together in a project, and when he got in back here in Nagaland, I'm told that his entire family stop him from coming to Nagaland because they thought that Nagas are headhunters, and that it's a very dangerous place to live in, and they even offered him that they would give him land, property, houses, like anything that he required so that he would not come to Nagaland. But he did come and started working with the project, and his experience is totally different from what he had heard about Nagaland. And this year also in March, I was part of this Young Edition conference for publishers in Bhopal, where I also met one of the publishers, children's book publishers, and we were talking about introducing ourselves to each other. And she was like, where are you from? And I said, Nagaland. And she said she was planning to visit Nagaland with her family. And she went on to say Nagaland is a beautiful country. So I mean, like, we live in the same country, but there are still misconceptions like that. They hear very little about Nagaland. They know very little about Nagaland, and which sort of also make us feel that we're not part of the country sometimes in such instances. So I mean, these are some of the things that I would like to change also, even through my writing, by, you know, writing more about Nagaland and reaching out to people who have not heard about Nagaland and have such misconceptions about our state.
Yes, and I think we mainlanders have to work harder as well. We have to work harder to understand this region, including Nagaland. Thank you for that. Atoshi?
Thank you. We often hear people say that Nagaland is entrepreneurially backward. Yes, if we go by the conventional interpretation of entrepreneurship, one may agree with that. But Nagaland had always had a unique historical background. And as all the villages were village republics, the settlers in the villages were always provided for through the Jhum cultivation. And this is so because the basket of demands were also very limited. And whatever was needed was provided for in the Jhum. Therefore, commercialization of things had not taken place, but production had always been happening. I won't be wrong if I say that had social media boom had been there 50 years back, I think Nagaland would have become a hub of learning for sustainable and non-destructive agriculture. So entrepreneurship had always been there. When at government level, when people talk about investment from outside, the first thing that comes to our mind is about big industries and all that kind of thing. But what we require here is about tiny activities, but production of things which are of low volume and high value, and there is tremendous potential. Now people have, one example that I can talk about is contour bunding. Contour bunding is an intervention where you prevent soil erosion. Now somebody has to come from outside and do organic certification in this place. Our forefathers have been promoting not organic, natural cultivation, which is many notches ahead of above organic cultivation. So these are many kinds of interventions that have been taking place, which have not been promoted for various reasons. I think for paucity of time, I may not elaborate more on that. But I think Nagaland has a lot to offer. You name anything, and it has to be agro-based mainly. And when it is agro-based, then many other things come in. Tourism, agri-tourism, culture tourism, and many other things. Even in the areas of culture, we have lots to sell. And these are certain areas where I think entrepreneurship is happening. Now young people, a band of young people have come in and they are promoting activities in which Nagaland has competitive advantage. So as for now, I will stop there, and if there is anything in the Q&A, I'll elaborate more. Thank you.
Thank you for that, which is a good reminder to you all to start writing in your questions. I know somebody, Hera Saud, has asked for email IDs of the panelists. We'll figure out how we can give that to you, because the whole idea really is that, we curate these panels because we want you to reach and get in touch with these esteemed scholars and experts working on different aspects of Nagaland. So I'm assuming they'll also be happy to hear from you. Right. So please ask your questions. There is no such thing, by the way, as a bad question or a stupid question. Sometimes these so-called stupid questions yield the most profound insights. So please ask questions by typing it on the Q&A. Type it, okay? And I will start picking up questions and asking our panelists to answer them. Let's bring in Lipokmar, and then after that, let's see if there are any questions. But Lipokmar and Longkoi on what we get wrong about Nagaland.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity again. Venkatesh, you might want to recall, I took the least of the time in the introductory stage. So I might want to claim the advantage of 1 or 2 more additional minutes.
Go for it.
Right. We can safely call Naga a singing tribe. And one of the misconceptions is that Naga people are more into rock music, and Nagas are known for rock music and so on and so forth. But we need to appreciate and understand that music has played a very crucial role in our customs as well as in our belief system. For every occasion, there is a music, like at the child of a birth, for songs of courtship, or at the time of marriage, even for a new moon or for a full moon, there's a rich repertoire of music. Some of you might have seen the log drum, which is actually from the entire log. Log drums has its own beat patterns and it was used as a medium of communication during times of emergencies and so forth. So if you try to extract this beat patterns alone, it runs into hundreds and thousands of different beat patterns. So it gives a big opportunity for students of music, not only from this part of the region, but the entire country, for opportunity to come and research and study and so on and so forth. You know that we have inherited our historical accounts orally. There's very less transcripts or literature on the historical accounts. But the fact that the history has sustained through these years is because music served as a medium of transmission. So how it happened is that our forefathers stored the historical accounts in forms of songs, and they would gather the younger generations in the morong. We call it the morong, which was male dormitory, where young boys and girls, especially male occupants, would come every evening and would sing those songs over and over again. And it was stored in the memory, and it's been passed on from one generation to the other. Now I want to cite an example of how all of you in the panel or even participating in this discussion would remember the nursery rhymes that you learned when you could not even speak properly. How did it happen? That's because you have repetitively sung it over and over again. Same is the case in the case of Nagaland. We have stored these songs, transmitting from one generation to the other. And by virtue of having it repetitively sung and studied, it has been stored in the memory. Now this gives an opportunity for, yet again, for students of music to do research on it, because it embodies not only poem, but vast opportunities of literature. So that's how rich the music that we have inherited through our forefathers. I mean, mythologies and so on and so forth. So these are areas that gives a different color of what we present in the overall understanding of what we contribute to the nation as a whole in terms of the rich repertoire of music. So I hope, especially the students of music from various parts of the world, be interested to seek more understanding of this area.
Right. Thank you so much, Lipokmar, and greetings to the young person who came into the screen for a few seconds and disappeared as well. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see that. I couldn't tell if it's a boy or a girl, but yeah.
That's my son.
Oh, it's your son. Okay. Lovely. Longkoi, it's over to you.
Living here in Haryana for 8+ years, I have n number of instances where the place that I have come from, or the food that I eat, the look that I have, you know. So instances like Nagaland is not in India, you know, it is outside India. And you guys belong to a different race. So one time I was in a train station. There was this couple, happened to be a army couple. He walked towards me, and then he asked me in Hindi, "Aap kahan se ho? Lag raha hai ki is desh se nahi ho." So then I looked at him. I also replied to him that मुझे भी नहीं लग रहा है कि आप इस देश से हो. आपको लग रहा है कि आप अफगानिस्तान या पाकिस्तान से हो. So he knows that, you know, what I felt deep down. Also, I commute between my university and Delhi often, weekly or monthly. So I am not actually saying that they are ignorant, or maybe they are not able to understand where this look comes from, you know. Most of the time, even especially the women, you know, they would be more harsh to you. For example, pushing me, you know, in the corner of the window, you know, where they would not even allow me to close the window in the chill windows. Another instances also, one time I was taking a walk, and on our way back, me and my friend, we plucked this vegetable, which is commonly available in the bazaar. So a professor asked me, Longwe, what is it in your hand? And I said, this is a leaf, you know, which I'm going to boil and have it. And he commented, saying that aap log to kuch bhi kha lete hai. So I replied to him that, you know, main aapko bhi kha sakta hai. So the level of misunderstanding or the misconception that the so-called mainland, I mean, the mainland itself is a very subjective again, because if somebody asked me about Tamil Nadu, you know, I would know nothing, or maybe just something I would know about their community or their society, right? So in terms of food choice, or in terms of what we eat, you know, they have a very, very different misconception of, you know, how what we eat. Another misconception that they have is it safe to go to Nagaland? Because the place where I'm working, mostly they are from, you know, Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, UP, Bihar. So to claim the LDCs, leave travel concession with your family members, they would want to explore Northeast India. And when it comes to Nagaland, you know, they would ask me, you know, is it safe to go? Is it dangerous? We heard that, you know, people eat people, you know, cannibals. So I tell them that, look, first of all, mentally, if you think that, you know, they're going to eat you, you are not going to be safe going there. So why do you even plan to go there, right? So these are also, you know, these people are innocent, you know, they know nothing, they don't know politics. They just accept the things as it is. So these are some of the things that, you know, living here in midst of the so-called mainland India, you know, I have experienced, and these are some of the instances that, you know, I'm just sharing it with all of you.
Thank you for those sharing your personal experiences, because I mean, they help us understand also from you know, a personal perspective. Let's ask two more people what we get wrong about Nagaland before we go into Q&A. But I just want to see if people have started asking questions. If there are no questions or very few questions, I have a number of really stupid questions to ask. So don't worry about that. And when I say really stupid, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that in an encouraging way, that, you know, you can ask any question. That's the whole point of this. So David, what do we get wrong about Nagaland? And then Tejal Hauko.
Well, in my workplace, sometimes when we talk and they have to say that he is an ST or a tribal, sometimes they avoid saying, thinking that I might feel bad, or, you know, oh, he might feel a little low and all that. Actually, it's quite opposite of that. You know, we are quite proud of being tribals. You know, we never feel ashamed being tribals. That's the misconception that some people have, thinking that, oh, we will feel these, that. And on the contrary, actually, we are very proud of the fact that we are tribals. And the other thing is, starting from the colonial writers, and then even many mainland or like many people think that, you know, at least in the past they were savages and all that. But the thing is, these are all wrong construction of history. We might have had a very different civilization, a different kind of civilization, but that doesn't mean we were savages. And in fact, one example I want to give, say like when I mean we are written as if like we kill all animals or we cut all the trees and all that. But the thing is that in some of our culture, some of the tribes, when we kill an animal, when we bring that to the village a gate, we ask for forgiveness from the spirit of that animal. Uh, s- Similarly, trees also, when we cut, we ask for forgiveness, saying that I had to cut you because I needed you for construction and this and that. So, still, I work a little bit on folk tales. So these are some of the things that I study. So the thing is that, so far from being savages, actually, we were far more concerned about the environment, far more concerned about sustainability. So I think that's also one misconception that people have about us, so which needs to be corrected. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for that. We've got about 2 or 3 questions, but let's bring in Tejal Hauko now on what we get wrong about Nagaland, and then I'll go to the questions.
Thank you. I actually want to rephrase the question slightly and ask what mainland India consciously and willfully gets wrong about the Nagas instead of Nagaland. And the answer, I think, is the assumption or belief that the violent history of the Indo-Naga conflict can be rewritten with economic development and cultural interaction. And I think this assumption is a product not of ignorance, but willful and a conscious attempt to wipe clean the sins of India. And I think mainland India refuses to acknowledge just how deeply the scars of the Indo-Naga conflict continue to shape the contemporary politics, say in Nagaland and even the neighboring state of Manipur. And by this, I do not mean that all the evils in the contemporary society can be attributed to mainland India. My own research on Dimapur city attempts to unravel the ways in which the ethno-nationalist movement also creates regimes of exclusion with the potential for violence against the perceived other. My point is that I think there is very little value in talking about addressing the communication gap or correcting misunderstanding without first addressing the scars of this violent history of the Indo-Naga conflict.
Thank you for that. Definitely, one must talk more about this and to understand, a lot about where the scars, how deep the scars run, and so on. Okay, so let's bring in some questions. Hera Saud asks, Lipokmar, I would request to know more about the Nagaland Association of Music, along with it, some suggestions of writing to understand Nagaland's oral culture. And after that, there's a question for Dr. Atoshi as well, who wants to, hear more on the beehive cultivation. So Lipokmar and then Atoshi, and then I'll go to the other questions.
Well, as far as the oral traditions are concerned, the available literatures are quite limited, actually. But one has to really take the initiative or the efforts to come and interact with the locals, because as in any culture or community, oral tradition is always at the risk of losing its worth, or even worse. And same is the case in the case of Nagas. So it takes one, even as an insider or as an outsider, to come and appreciate understand what are the concepts, what are the objectives behind the narratives, the songs, the moral codes that are embodied in the songs or in the concepts and so forth.
Mhm. If I don't know if you have access to the chat, but if you can add some suggestions of writing, that would be great, or you can tell it to us and we can paste that in. Dr. Atoshi, a little more on the beehive cultivation, please.
Yeah, we all know people ventured into the forest and do honey hunting in the past, and it has been in practice since time immemorial. But what with the modern beekeeping does is about rearing the bees and breeding them, making them into more colonies, and harvest honey in a non-destructive manner. In the olden days, people used to go and then smoke the bees and destroy the whole bee honeycomb and then extract the juice out of it. That way, you do a lot of destructions, and also the quantity collected is less. So what we did is about bringing together the modern beehives, the honey extractor, and also training the villagers in how to rear honey and reuse the beehive. That's how production also increased, productivity increased, and the seasonal harvesting of the honey used to take place at regular interval. This also, as we all know, bees and honey, bees used to help in crop pollination. So this also increases the productivity of the fields. So this is about the beekeeping.
There's another question for you, sir, but I'll come back to you later. Another question for you. Swarnim asks, hello, panelists. I would like to know, I'm not able to read that for a second. I would like to know what are the challenges in codifying customary law if the members of the tribe are dispersed across different regions of the country and internationally? Does anyone want to take that question? I've just read it out. We can come back to you once you've decided. You can just unmute your mic and answer that question, the panelists. Other questions are the question to Vishu Rita. I would request to know more about the book Death and Dying in Northeast India, Indigeneity and After. I'm just taking the questions from top to bottom.
This book is on chapter contributions from different authors, where I also contributed a chapter based on the beliefs in that and after that in my village. So I grew up hearing about this. My grandfather's great grandmother who served as a mediator between the dead and the living. And so it's more like a biographical account of my grandfather and his encounter with the spirit world and the kind of instances that he came across while growing up with his great grandmother. So there are it's all in the book. So if you'd like to check out, I'm not sure if they have brought out the Indian edition yet because this was published in the UK. Maybe you could find out online and see.
Thanks for that. Okay, there's another question for you though, but I'll come back to you on this. I'm just skipping down a little. Don't worry, I'm not going to miss any question that has been asked. Okay, let's go to this question. Kanato, Sabina asks, Kanato, can you kindly trace a little bit of the history of the Baptist mission and how it was not necessarily always in alignment with British colonial agenda as commonly perceived?
Yeah, so I'm in a place called Assam, where Miles Bronson is quite, in fact, he's part of the whole Assam cultural fabric. Just came across one letter written by Miles Bronson back to the mission board in the United States. He's accusing the British of using them to further their agenda. So Miles Bronson is saying that we should, make a bit of a keep distance from from British government or that we should see to them go ahead and involve with the British authorities. There are so many instances, but just coming back to my argument that again, it's not black and white, because yes, definitely the American missionaries have benefited with regards to security reasons. So whenever the British authority goes and then they annex a region, that's where eventually the police state comes. So that brings more security for the missionaries to go and then spread the message. But being an anthropologist, one thing that fascinates me also is that if you have to go through the writings of people like J.H. Hutton, J.P. Mills, or people like T.C. Hudson, or even for that matter, even Führer Hemmendorf and Pereira Elvig, they really disliked the Baptist mission. I mean, like you see, like writings after writings blaming the Baptist mission or the Protestant missionaries for, decimating or for destroying the indigenous cultures of the Nagas. So to say that, that the flag and the cross goes hand in hand. And this is not only with regards to the Nagas, but especially for people who put a lot of focus on the Kuki-Zo people, the Chins, especially in Burma, or in for that matter, among the Kanchins, have to understand that things are very contextual. Our histories are very complex. So just as our histories, our cultures, our identities are complex, even the whole missionary and the British colonialism encounter is very complex. So we cannot have this black and white kind of understanding, saying that Christian missionaries are the handmaiden of Western imperialism. So these are things, I think, as serious scholars, if you are a really serious scholar, these things have to be relooked and then rethink, especially with regards to Northeast India. So thank you for that very interesting question.
Thank you for the answer. I'm going to ask Longkoi to answer Swarnim's question. Will there be challenges, Swarnim asks, in codifying customary law if the members of the tribe are dispersed across different regions of the country and internationally? I'm assuming not one tribe, but several tribes. I mean, the question is not clear on that regard, but I don't think it's specific to any particular tribe. So the question for you, Longkoi.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at in the context of Nagaland, there are 4 to 5 tribes. They have come up in a book form, the customary laws, where they have detailed about, what to follow. For example, if you break the marriage rules, what should be the fine in terms of cash, in terms of kind. Somewhere, I have argued also that codifying, it might benefit the community, especially the male folk, but it is not going to be, for women. Why? Because without even codifying, women are not able to come out from that division between this private and the public sphere that we have divided. For example, Morang, I wanted to mention that in my presentation, but because of the time paucity, I could not stress on. Many of us, we kind of like glorify that it's a dormitory, and beyond that, we don't think about it. But if you look at some colonial administrators and anthropologists, they have also mentioned that it is a masculine institution, where decision making, or how to go to war, all these things are taught to the male, young ones, not to the female or women. They are not even allowed to come near the Morang. The only time they are allowed to come to the Morang is to serve rice peers. But at the end of the day, they are expected to take care of the household, to complete the household chores, to take care of the family. But at the end of the day, when it comes to what to decide what decision to take. It is the male, who kind of decide. It is not the women. So codifying is maybe in the interest of the for the administration. For example, the place where I come from, Noglak district. When I went for my field work for this project only, I went to Dubashi court and I have asked them that if there is anything where I can use for this research. And the immediate what one of the guys did was he showed me the office to benefit maybe in terms of administration, but when it comes to gender aspect, it is not going to be, because without even codifying, it is, women are, nowhere when it look at the, comparing with the men in terms of in the hierarchy. Yeah.
Got it. I mean, thank you for that perspective. Swarnim also adds that they belong to the Limbu tribe of Sikkim, and they're currently working on codifying customary law there, which is why they raised the question. So that's the reason for the question. We'll be doing a Sikkim roundtable also. I want to wait. Lipokmar is raising his hand.
If I may add one more thing to that one.
One sec, Lipokmar. I want to give one question to Bano, so that she has some time to think about it while you're speaking. Which is, can you please share more about your conservation work with the local communities and the difficulties you encountered? So while you're thinking about that, Lipokmar, it's over to you.
The aspect of codifying laws in the context of Nagas is close to impossible, because every tribe has its own distinctive body of knowledge and practices. Now, even within the same tribe, the villages have its own different practices. Like, for example, in terms of marriages, on how you attribute or assign inheritance and so forth. These are distinctive practices, and we should recognize this as distinctive body of knowledge that needs to be preserved and needs to be continued. Now, as far as the Morong practices are concerned, unfortunately, the practice is no longer prevalent, but it, like one of the ladies has informed, it was not only just a dormitory, but it was actually an educational setup. It was a social institution where the men folk would come and they would learn. I mean, this was actually an educational center where they would learn the not only the moral practices, but the customary practices that was crucial and essential, and so on and so forth. So every tribe has its own distinct and descriptive way of practices. So codifying the laws in terms of the Nagas is close to impossible as far as my knowledge is concerned.
Interesting. I wonder what the experience will be in Sikkim. Anyway, it's over to you, Bano.
Yeah. Okay, so I think by now you probably have a fair representation of how complicated Nagaland is and the issues that are there. And it's no different when it comes to the field of conservation. I would like to just take not a leaf, but a shade from what Kanato has shared earlier with the introduction and the arrival of the gospel. So before the gospel came, the Nagas had great reverence. All tribes had great reverence for the forest, for the land, for the soil, for the air, for the stones, for the mountains, for the trees, animals, and spirits. But sad to say that I think when the missionaries came, they did not recognize this reverence that was there and this affinity with the world of creation that existed with the Nagas. And that was not given much credence to my mind, what I understand. And so when you look back, I think the missionaries themselves were coming from an age of science and industrialization and modernity as so far way back when the age of machines and the locomotive engines were being made, and it was with the sense of extraction from nature, not of preservation or nurturing. And so I think this somehow has passed on to us as a people, and all the things that we say about how our ancestors had reverence for creation, that seems to be fast disappearing and has been fast disappearing. Although we may see some of these aspects remaining in small landscapes, small areas, but largely the culture of extraction, the culture of destruction, that somehow is a great challenge right now in conservation as we try to make sense of, living sustainably and also battling this climate change. And that for me is, as somebody who's been working in conservation with communities for the last decade and a few years more, it is a very big challenge to connect the old Naga spirit, the affinity that we once had with the land and the reverence. I don't want to sound romantic in any way, but this knowledge, the knowledge that was passed down from father to son and to the family, that seems to have been fractured. And we are now at the stage of relearning, rediscovering what secrets our land holds. So I think it's a journey, and I sincerely hope we still have time to correct all the mistakes that we have made in the last 4 to 5 decades of so-called development. And this is where I think we need to really pause, reflect, and take corrective measures for sustainable livelihood. And it is possible.
Okay.
So this is my journey with the conservation work with communities at the moment.
Thank you for that. We have about 3-4 more questions, so I won't take any more questions after this, as in I will read out the current questions, maybe ask a question of my own, but that's the only way we can get this conversation over. Otherwise, we will continue talking. And this can be like an adda or a mail, and we can continue talking. No issues, but I want to respect people's time as well. So, okay, so a few more questions. Let's go through them. There's a question from Kaveri Dikshit for Dr. Atoshi. Could you please elaborate a little more on the different kinds of enterprises that can and should be promoted in Nagaland? Atoshi?
Okay, thank you. We have already spoken about one, beekeeping. We can't go into the specifics, but broadly, considering the fragility of the environment and the ecology and the settings, the topography, we can't afford to have huge enterprises, machineries, and all that. But and also look at the competitive advantage that we have. So, in my opinion, it has to be agro-based primarily, and we have great expertise in agriculture. Two distinction. One is the settled cultivation, and the other is the shifting cultivation. We are expert in shifting cultivation also, but what we used to do is that, as I said in the earlier, when I was speaking earlier, Zoom used to provide for everything. Therefore, commercialization didn't take place. And therefore, even now, people used to cultivate in small quantities, and therefore the economies of scale doesn't come into play. So to take care of this, I think a cluster approach is the best approach, whereby contiguous villages can be brought together, and then crop zoning can be done. We are in the process of experimenting with this kind of an activity in our operational area, where we can have bulk, and you can either transport it raw as a primary produce, or also go into value addition of the produce. We have lots of, almost all the superfoods, you name it, and it grows in Nagaland. Therefore, I think we have to go into this kind of thing to reduce on the transportation cost, because you can't do mass production in a place like Nagaland because of the constraints of land mass and the cultivable land that is available. And therefore, we can go into premium produce and also reduce volume by doing primary, secondary, and tertiary value addition. I think and agro-based activities have to be the primary occupation. And when you do agricultural activities, other things come in, people come in, and you go into education, educational institution, and many other things, shops, and all that kind of things. So it is all interlinked. And also, yeah, this is what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. I'm sure you could say much more, but in the interest of time, I'm asking the others to answer the questions. So that was a question. By the way, the previous question to Bano was from Deborah Serto. Now we have a question, interesting question from, they're all interesting, but this particular one question is from Ruku Ono, which is, can you talk about the demonization or representation of the Northeast region in mainstream Bollywood movies? Anyone wants to talk about that, please unmute, lift your hand, so to speak, and then you can speak. There are other questions as well from Ashutosh Lobial. Two questions. How has the perception of Nagaland changed over time, particularly in the context of political developments and conflict? And then how can we, that's a generic question, how can we improve our understanding of Nagaland and its unique identity? If you all maybe want to mention any YouTube videos or any books to read or articles to read down in the chat below, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. Lipokmar has already added a few resources down below, so thank you so much for that. Anyone wants to answer those questions I mentioned? In the meantime, there is also a question to Rita from Menang Longkumar. Question, as a publisher, what are your views on balancing culture and modernity through writings from Nagaland?
I can answer that meanwhile.
Yes.
Yeah. As a publisher, I don't really look at a manuscript in respect of its modern value or cultural value, but I really look at the heart of the story and the heart of the manuscript. But I think it's also important in our writing, even in writing, to embrace modernity without forgetting our cultural roots, because these two are actually really interconnected. Tradition can provide us with a sense of cultural identity, but modernity also brings along with it innovation, creativity, and new opportunities.
Okay. Thank you for that. Anyone wants to talk about the demonization and representation in mainstream Bollywood movies? There's also a question for David from Menang. Could David Hanning talk a little about on Nagas from Manipur in context of what you said about cookies earlier?
Can you kindly read the question once again? I can't see.
It says, could David Hanning talk a little on Nagas from Manipur in the context to what you said earlier about cookies earlier?
Well,
maybe you should take it in the Manipur roundtable, but you can just.
yes. So
I mean, why don't think about it if you want to? I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
So anyone else has not spoken perhaps in a while and wants to say something? I have a very basic question, but I'm just going to wait for someone to speak. Okay, my very basic question is this. When you talk about what is the common language or the link language in Nagaland, what would it be? I mean, I'm assuming it's Nagamese, but then I was reading that Nagamese itself is like a link language that was created because people from various tribes and communities in Nagaland had their own languages. So I read, just yesterday I read that it used to not be the first language people used to learn. but now that is changing. So is that really true? I would like to know. And is English more common? Is Hindi more common? What would you have to say to these very basic questions? I'm again approaching from a space of ignorance, but I also have curiosity. So, please unmute and speak. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So in the present context, English is the most prominent one. Our kids are more comfortable in English, as much as, of course, Nagamis. In the earlier days, taking into consideration that education came to some respective tribes earlier, and much of the literature, especially the Bible, were mostly translated into their language. Like, for example, the Ao tribe was one of the earlier tribes to accept Christianity. So understandably, Bible was translated to their dialect initially. And so the evangelists from the Ao tribe would go and educate the other neighboring villages or tribes. And that's how, to a certain stage, up to 1960s, if I'm correct, if I may be, Ao was a very prominent language, especially in the eastern Nagas, besides the Ao in the central Nagaland. So such was the case, but with the advent of education in various pockets of the state, English has emerged to be a more common, acceptable communication medium in the state of Nagaland as of now.
Okay. Thanks for that. Anyone else wants to answer that question, speak about it?
Sure, I think I'll just add and extend that a little bit, because Nagamese is a very useful, practical language for communication in areas where you do not speak that particular tribe's language. So it would be like for your own personal communication, it would be the lingua franca. So I work in several villages where I do not speak the language of the particular tribes. So I would have to resort to Nagamese. But having said that, Nagamese would be understood generally by everyone in that area, in the village. But I would be able to comfortably communicate, yes, in English with the younger generation. But those who are above their 40s, they would probably be, perhaps more comfortable speaking Nagamese. So
Right.
you can use both, yeah.
I can see Kanato
And,
nodding as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, just very quickly regarding the demonization of the region. Just some years back, I watched one movie called Tango Charlie. I think Ajay Devgan and Bobby Deol. I think these movies should not be made, in my opinion. Usually, all great movie makers are good researchers and they read a lot. So I mean, to write, to make movies or to represent people, cultures, and spaces in all this. I think it is also an invitation for people to read more, do more research, get to know the region more or engage more with the region before, producing movies. Because a very poor representation. Like very quickly, Anek is a beautiful movie, I think, which was made so well. But if you have to, as somebody from the region, if you have to actually look into that movie, it used a very broad, kind of a paintbrush to paint the entire region. So I think, more deeper engagement with the region, more deeper research, even among the art and movie fraternity, I think would bring better representation to the region. Yeah, so that's something I would like to say. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I mean, I think we can close. There are a couple of questions that have not been answered. David has to go. David, that question, do you want to speak?
Can you kindly
read it again? Yes.
Yes.
So Menang Longkumar asks, could David Haneng talk a little on Nagas from Manipur in context to what he has said about cookies earlier?
Well, I wouldn't be the right person to talk about the Nagas of Manipur. All that I can say is that they are also a very diverse, beautiful group of tribes. So that's all I can say. I'm sorry, man. I mean, I can say this and that, but I don't think I would be qualified to talk much about the Nagas of Manipur. Yeah, thank you.
And I think our TV anchors should learn from you, David. Say, I don't want to say. So Ashutosh's question, Ashutosh, you asked very generic questions. That's my issue. How has the perception of Nagaland changed over time, particularly in the context of political developments and conflict? Anyone wants to say that?
I think
Try.
Dr. Bano would be the right person. Dr. Bano, I would like to hear from you.
No doctor prefix to my name. I'm not a doctor. Okay. What was the question? Sorry, I was
How has the
looking around.
perception of Nagaland changed over time, particularly in the context of political developments and conflict?
I think Nagaland has outdone itself in many political quagmires, I think even for the Constitution of India. But to rewind the clock, I think we have to see it's interesting to note that nobody talks about this, but the first regional party in the Northeast was in Nagaland. So in that sense, I think Nagaland has really shown the growth and the participation and the contribution that regional parties can have and should have in the governance of their affairs. And so it was way back in with the formation of the Democratic Party of Nagaland, very soon after the state of Nagaland was created, that this party was created. The Democratic Party of Nagaland was created after after this very tumultuous insurgency and the army operations that took place in Nagaland with the Indo-political fight on with the Naga Nationals NNC and the federal government of Nagaland. And so the creation of the state of Nagaland actually provided an opportunity for Naga people to participate in the parliamentary system of governance that India as a young republic was also experimenting with. And so the Nagas' participation in the parliamentary system came with the formation of the Regional Party of Nagaland. And of course, then there's always been, the regional party and the central parties, which have been vying for political control. And over the years, over the last 60 years now, since the state of Nagaland, we have seen Nagaland where politics, I would say that politics has developed, but it leaves a big question as to whether governance has really developed. And I would just like to end on that politics may have developed. We have many more political parties, and there are because there are so many tribes, and each tribe would want a representation in the political party or in the party or in the government of the year of the period. So there is always we've always suffered through tribalism, and that continues. But I think at a particular level that also evens out. But the question that people today are asking, the ordinary citizen of Nagaland is asking, is about good governance. And I think that is where we need to really deliver on that. I hope that answers the question.
Well, it did make sense to me, and
I wasn't prepared for that.
Okay. Yeah. No. Thank you for that. I think there's one last question, and then we'll leave it there. Hera asks, if anyone on the panel can suggest some writings or articles to know more on the importance of forgiveness in Nagaland. Forgiveness specifically. They'll be grateful. And I'll just read a comment from Arka Prav Dwan. Rereading Marx, the greatest thing is to be dehumanized and alienated. I think that has given more growth to culture and traditions to the region. Again, it's not how how Bollywood presumes Northeast in the movies. You can read the comments yourself. Yeah, that's basically it. Anyone wants to talk about forgiveness, and then we can say goodbye. We're so many minutes over the time we asked of you, so my apologies for that.
I can only say that forgiveness is something we Nagas have to learn. Still, we are on a journey. We must learn how to forgive.
Right. Okay. For me, that is a slightly cryptic statement, and I'm going to unpack that in the next few days as we start, as I learn more. Because it can be said that forgiveness is something all of us have to learn, right? Starting with forgiving ourselves. So thank you for that, though.
Yeah, but you need to learn to love first. And love is a verb. It's an action. And when you act on love, you also learn to forgive. Sorry, but yeah, okay. Don't want to go into
I think that's a good last word to leave this conversation on. Thank you very much, everybody. To us speakers, thank you extra for sticking along for so long. Also to our guests and registrants who stuck here. We had more than 100 people registering, then 65 people came, and then 44 of you are still around. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Please take the feedback form and say we didn't like this, or we like that. The more specific your feedback, the more helpful it is, so that we can do this again another time. Thank you so much. Let's stop recording now, and then I'll